Hi everybody, welcome back to another Fresh Reads reading vlog. Today I'm going to be starting Follow Me to Africa by Penny Ha. And this is a story that is inspired by the paleoanthropologist Mary Leakey, and a young woman who encounters her in 1983 in the Serengeti Plains of Tanzania. I hope there's a lot of great nature writing in here because I haven't actually read a book set in Tanzania, I don't think. And I've read a lot of books set in South Africa, so I'm interested to read a book set in another part of Africa. And this one was published this year, and I'm really excited to get to it, and hopefully I really like it. So I will check in again with you when I have reached the halfway point. Or maybe I will check in again with you when I have actually read a little bit of it and give you my first impressions. Hi all. So I have reached halfway. I know I said I might check in with you with first impressions for this, but I didn't do that. So we are halfway in Follow Me to Africa by Penny Ha, and I wanted to check in with you and let you know how I'm liking it. So this novel has two timelines. It has a 1930s timeline where we're following Mary Leakey as she is, Mary Nickel was her maiden name, as she is coming of age, deciding she wants to be an archaeologist, and she doesn't go to university, so she is pursuing this career through apprenticeship and learning. And her mother is very intent on her meeting a man and socializing with people her own age, and that's not something that Mary feels called to do. She's really loves her dogs, and she wants to pursue her career, but she does it on her own terms. She is estranged from her father. Her father and her mother get divorced when she's quite young, and her father is not in her life. And then her mother gets ill, and she cares for her mother. Sorry, no, now I'm mixing them up. So there's another, sorry. So this is funny because, there's two main characters in this book, and I just mixed up the two storylines, so forgive me. Mary Leakey, her father passes away when she's young, and she has a great relationship with her father, and her father ignited in her kind of artistic and archaeological and travel dreams. Okay, so that's Mary. Our other character is Grace. Grace is estranged from her father because her parents got divorced when she was really young. Her mother gets sick. She cares for her mother until she passes away. And so it kind of stops her progression because she stops going to school to care for her mother. And her timeline is set in the early 1980s, 1983. And I believe this is when Mary Leakey is close to leaving Tanzania after being there for 30 years and working there. And so our fictional character, Grace, comes into the camp with her father on a 2-week visit, and her and Mary Leakey become friends. And so they develop a relationship in the camp where Grace is learning to be more independent, and she's learning to find out what she likes and who she is as a person. She's 17. And the other side is Mary's life with Louis Leakey. Is it Louis? I don't know if it's Louis or Louis, but anyway, it might be Louis Leakey, who's also a very famous archaeologist, and their life together in Tanzania in this specific camp. So that is the story, and it's very readable. It's quite entertaining. And it moves at a really good pace. There's sometimes, a few years of gap there. and you learn about Grace's story through flashbacks within the 1983 timeline. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's like I said, I'm reading it quite quickly. The plot is moving along very well. I like the friendship that is developing between Grace and Mary. And I think it is a good book that is kind of one of those ones that showcases, contrasts generations of women and their experiences coming of age and the things they go through. And it is, I would say, a fictional biography of Mary Leakey, which is great because I find that really interesting. Obviously, Penny Haw could have taken some allowances with what's happened in Mary's life. So, I would have to read a biography of her to know if there were some additions to her life in here that were not actually accurate. Again, I've read lots of books like this before, and I don't really mind that. What I want is an impression of her as a character, as a person, and who she was, and I think this book is doing that really well. There's also some lovely descriptions of the desert where they're at, which is the Serengeti Plains of Tanzania. So you get a really interesting sense of Africa and like this part of Africa in particular and what it's like there. I would say the only thing that I'm finding not strange but interesting is that in Penny Haw's descriptions of the characters, she's not differentiating between Native Africans and British people. So when they're described, there's no mention of their skin color or of their ethnicity at all. So you are given some descriptors of the character, but you have to infer that that might be a Native African person as opposed to a British person, which is an interesting choice narratively. I'm not sure why she did that, because I think it's probably important to differentiate between, British and African people, especially in this context, because there's so much now that we know about archaeological practices during this time where, things were being taken from Africa and brought to Britain and put into museum collections that were actually, better off staying on the continent where they were found and being cared for by the people whose culture they came from. So, in this case, they're actually looking for origins of the first evidence of man. So it's like the first evidence of humans' evolution. So where humans originated from is what Louis Leakey was looking for, because he believed it was Eastern Africa, and that is obviously correct. That has been proven. So I'm not sure if he was the one that proved it or not. Obviously, I'm not super in the know about paleoanthropologists, which is what Louis Leakey is, a paleoanthropologist. So, all these terms get a little bit mixed up for me, but I am really enjoying this book. So that was what I was checking in to tell you, and I will check in again when I have finished it. Everyone. Okay, so I finished Follow Me to Africa by Penny Haw. And I think overall, I did enjoy this book. I have to say that it's not necessarily like the overall story and was not necessarily put together the way I would have preferred. But I think that Penny Hawes' approach to taking real women from, history and writing about their lives in a fictionalized way is very interesting. She does have an author's note at the end of the book that talks a bit about her approach. Penny Hawes is a South African author, actually, which I wasn't aware of when I started the book. And I think that, as would happen for anyone, when you are taking a real life person and including biographical details, which is what she did, she only extrapolated into areas of certain conversations, emotions, reactions to situations. She did use factual things that had happened to Mary Leakey in the book. So she may have manipulated timelines and things like that, but ultimately she didn't fabricate things that happened to Mary Leakey. But ultimately, she will not include things that I was interested in learning about. So Mary Leakey, of course, discovered I'm not going to say it right, the hominid. So yeah, Mary Leakey discovered the hominid footprints at Laetoli. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know all the history exactly, but I believe this was the proof that, or led to the proof around humans originating in Africa. And so, that to me was like pivotal in telling her story, telling Mary Leakey's story. But that moment wasn't included in this book. There were a whole bunch of other discoveries that she made that were included. So things like that, like the choices that she made about what she put in and what she left out, the way she handled the birth of her children, like she very much brushed over the fact that Mary Leakey was a mother. It was included in here and her sons are talked about, but it wasn't included as something that was fundamental to her evolution as a human. So I feel like, fine, that's true. That may not be the case for all women, but I think that would have been an interesting thing that she could have put in here. And Grace, who is our fictional character, who is interacting with Mary Leakey, was the weaker storyline out of the two. And as I said earlier, there's two timelines, 1983 and like Mary kind of coming of age, marrying Louis Leakey, and then becoming the anthropologist an archaeologist that she was. So, that part was definitely more interesting. So to me, I think that the way she told the story, maybe this wasn't the best way. Maybe there was a better way to put it all together. I don't know what that would have been for me. And I think that in her other two novels, historical fiction novels previous to this, she also picked real life women, and she did use a first person narrative for their stories. And I do wonder if maybe that would have made this stronger, because Grace's character was definitely the character that was a bit less compelling for me. Like I did still want to read about her, but she just was a bit of a one line because she's a 17-year-old girl, and there's not as much depth or complexity to someone that age when you've got the life experience of a 70-year-old woman who has done all these things as the other storyline. So anyway, yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Sorry, I gave it 4 stars, I think, because it was basically a 3.5 for me. I think the ending was nothing spectacular to me. And near the end,
the perspective stops shifting. So basically our last like flashback perspective was when Louis died. And I that's another pet peeve for me. When you are talking about real life people and you make like a woman like Mary Leakey, who is so accomplished, her whole story seemed to not continue once the partner that she was married to dies. I find that very limiting. Like, she had a huge amount of important life experiences that were not connected to Louis and or Louis. I don't know how people pronounce it. He was African, so how would they have pronounced it? I don't even know. Someone can tell me. Yeah, anyway, I'm digressing now, but as a fresh read, you know, again, glad I read it, but wouldn't say that this was one of my favorites out of the fresh reads I've read this year. But yeah, that is Follow Me to Africa by Penny Haw. Let me know if you've read it. Let me know if this would be something you're interested in. Again, historical fiction, good writing, I would say. Pretty good writing. Character development, maybe not as strong on all the characters. And so that's probably where it fell short for me. Okay, so that is that fresh read. I will be doing fresh reads in November and December. I believe I still have 4 books on the list of 7 that I created at the beginning of this year to read in fresh reads, not including 2 that I have currently I'm on a wait list for, which is one of the Booker Prize shortlist and one of the Giller Prize books. So we'll see what the next one will be, and maybe I'll do multiples. I think that might be a fun thing to try to attempt for the end of the year. But we're also heading into nonfiction November soon, so I will be probably reading a lot more nonfiction in November. We'll see. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will be back again soon with another video.